You want to know what it's like to live in Pittsburg, California? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about today. So let's get to it. Welcome to the Thriving in the Bay Area channel. I'm Rich Fleming, your local realtor, and I am here to teach you everything you need to know about living, working, playing, sleeping, eating. You know the drill in the Bay Area. I do these videos for two reasons primarily. One, it does help me to attract business, but secondly, I have moved places and not known anyone or anything I got when I got there, and I know how challenging that is. So if you've got questions about relocating either to the Bay Area or even within the Bay Area from, different parts, moving around the Bay Area. It's a huge region. So if you got questions, my contact information is in the video description below. You can book a Zoom call with me directly with one of the links below. All right? So without further ado, let's talk about Pittsburg, California. So as I like to do in these videos, let's start off with where you can find Pittsburg on a map, a little bit about its demographics, and a little bit about its history. So you can find Pittsburg located about 32 miles northeast of Oakland. And to drive here from Oakland, you would take Highway 24 east into Walnut Creek. Then you'd take Highway 680 north into Concord. Take then Highway 242 north to Highway 4 east. And once you get on Highway 4, it's about a 10-minute drive or so, assuming you don't hit traffic. And Pittsburg has a population of roughly 76,000 people spread out over an area of 17.6 miles. So that gives it a population density of about 4,300 people per square mile. The town, I believe, was formed in 1839, but it didn't incorporate until 1903. That does make it one of the older cities in the area. The original layout of this town was actually done by Tecumseh Sherman, who later became a famous Civil War general. The history of the town, this town really grew up around industry. Started out as a ferry port along the Suisun Bay Delta. It had mining in the area, agriculture, industry, and the town really grew up around those things. Going into the early 20th and mid 20th century, there was a heavy focus on a steel plant here in town, which is still here, and other industrial businesses related to steel. So this town really grew up around those industries. Things to do here in Pittsburg. So Pittsburg is somewhat of a little slower, sleepier town. It doesn't have a super nightlife area. If you are in the marina area of the town, there is a very nice wine bar. There are a few restaurants down there. There is the Pittsburg Historical Museum. If you want more of an outdoor adventure, there is the Black Diamond Mine Regional Park. Just coming downtown, it's just a nice area to walk around, quite honestly. I think it could use more development, more businesses, get it a little bit more lively, but there's definitely more happening down here than there was, like I said, maybe 10, 20 years ago. So let's talk employment here in Pittsburg. Now, as I mentioned, historically, Pittsburg was essentially an industrial town. It kind of grew up that way, but it has really transformed over the last 20 to 30 years into more of a bedroom community. There are some employment options here in town, but chances are you're going to have to leave town for employment. Sorry, trying to chase the sun, make sure it doesn't glare out in the camera. But the largest employers in town are the Pittsburg Unified School District. I think they have about 1,200 employees. The Los Medanos College is about 700 employees, I think. and the largest private employer is USS Posco, and that is the steel plant here, and they have about 570 employees. Housing. So this is actually one of Pittsburgh's greatest draw points to people, especially over the last 10 to 15 years, is its cost of housing. So the median price for a home sold in April of 2024 was $591,000, I believe, and that is, that sounds like a lot if you're from other parts of the country, but by Bay Area standards, that is very affordable. And that has been one of the draws here to Pittsburgh, is the relative affordability. There is also a wide variety of housing in this area. You can find older 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom homes, especially in the downtown area. You can find, and some of those homes will be 80, 90, 100 years old. You can find homes that are about 50, 60 years old, 3 bedrooms, 2-bathroom, ranch style. And then you can find much more modern homes here in the city, right? So there's a very wide variety of housing in the city. There is a lot of new housing development in the adjacent city called Bay Point. Really, it's not a city, it's an unincorporated town. And there has been a significant amount of building. Now, in general, with housing in this area, once again, the further north you are, in general, the older the town is, the further south, the newer the housing development is. But right now I'm doing this in the very far north part of Pittsburgh, and as you can see behind me, there's been a whole lot of development in recent years, right? A lot more modern housing down here. And that's one of the things Pittsburgh has really been trying to do over the last 15 or 20 years, is redevelopment of the downtown area, which is where I'm filming a lot of this right now. So, once again, you got to come into the town and see different aspects of it. The downtown area is really being developed and rebuilt after it hit, kind of a slow spot there for 20 or 30 years in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. So let's talk education here in Pittsburgh. So the public schools are overseen by the Pittsburgh Unified School District. There are 1 high school, 3 middle schools, and I think 8 elementary schools here in the city. They have a total of about maybe just under 11,000 students. When you look online as far as educational rankings, and I always encourage people not to take the rankings too literally, but the rankings here it kind of depends based on the school, but I would say they're kind of average, but you kind of have to look at it yourself, make sure whatever the needs for you and your family are, that the individual school is going to be able to meet those needs. There's Los Madonnas College here in town, which is a junior college, and if I recall correctly, for a while, I'm not sure if that's current, it was actually considered one of the better junior colleges in all of California. So let's talk about the layout of Pittsburgh and a little bit about transportation here. So the city, as I said, is about 17.6 square miles. The city originally developed on the north side of the city, the side of the city closest to the Suisun Bay Delta. And that is just due to the fact that, as I mentioned, it was a ferry stop. A lot of the industry that grew up in this town happened to be located close to the waterway just for transportation reasons, and a lot of the railroad lines ran in that area. So That tends to be the historically older part of town. Highway 4 runs almost directly through the middle of the town. That highway runs east-west, and it really almost divides the town in two. The area to the south of Highway 4 tends to be a little bit newer when you're talking about housing development and things like that. As far as public transportation, you have access essentially to two BART stations. There is the Pittsburg BART station, and then there is the Bay Point BART station, and they're both pretty close. They give good access throughout the city to them. As far as bus transportation, that is provided by Tri-Delta Transit, and I will say that bus service, like many areas in the Bay Area, it is an okay service. It isn't the same level of service as you might expect if you're coming from a more densely populated East Coast city or something like that. It's really designed to get you along the main thoroughfares and to the BART stations, really. They also run between the cities of Pittsburg, Bay Point, Antioch, Brentwood, and Oakland. So it's pretty good service, but it isn't, every 15 minutes or every 10 minutes or anything like that. So let's talk crime and safety here in Pittsburg. Now, historically, Pittsburg has somewhat of a reputation as being a high crime area. And when you look at like a crime map from crimegrades.org or others, there are certain sections of the city where there are crime challenges. I'm not even going to get into, the motivating factors behind that. Sorry, once again, I'm trying to chase the sun away. So, but you also have to take those crime grade maps with a grain of salt, because in certain areas of the city which show as very high crime, most of those maps are crimes per 1,000 people living in that particular area. Well, certain sections of Pittsburgh, when you look at the map, show very high crime, but there are almost no people living there because of certain sections of the city are heavily still industrialized, right? So look at the maps, get your sense, but there's nothing that's going to beat driving around the different neighborhoods during the daytime, at night, what have you, to really get a sense as to what it's like to be here. Don't just go online, find some random service that's never visited the town, and draw a conclusion from there. So let's talk the pros and the cons of being in Pittsburgh, and we will start out with the pros. So the pros, well, the number one pro is obviously housing cost. So this is one of the more affordable communities in the Bay Area, especially with a housing price of less than $600,000. That might sound crazy coming from many other parts of the country, but here that's a very affordable housing price. You have a wide variety of housing, everything from apartments, condos, small 2-bedroom, 1-bathrooms to very large 5- and 6-bedroom houses in the area. So that is really one of its draws. The second positive is its access to BART. So in town, you're really no more than 10 minutes drive from a BART station. And driving on Highway 4 during commute hours is painful. But if you're going into Walnut Creek, Oakland, San Francisco to work, being able to access BART easily is a huge benefit. The third real benefit of being here, the third pro, is if you like having access to the outdoors, especially if you're into boating, fishing, jet skiing. There is a very large culture out here in the Delta area where the ability to do those things is quite easy. There are a lot of marinas and boat ramps and things like that in this general area. So those are really the three major pros that I see of being in Pittsburgh. So now let's talk about the cons of being in Pittsburg. And I touched on the first con, and that is traffic on Highway 4. So Highway 4, as I mentioned earlier, is really the only major highway running through a lot of the cities in this area. And at commute time, that highway is just brutal. Just plan and give yourself time if you're going to commute by car on that highway. The second con is, depending on what your needs are, the school district isn't as renowned as some of the other school districts in other areas. It is a strong school district. From what I have been reading, it has been a school district that is improving, but if you are very interested in that, it is one of your top priorities, you would definitely have to make sure that you check and see that your needs are going to be met here in Pittsburg. And then the third con, and I kind of touched on this earlier, it's just certain parts of the city are known to have a little bit higher crime challenges, but this is a city that has really changed in the last 10 and 15 years. So while I won't say there's no challenge with crime in Pittsburgh, it definitely is not the same level of challenges that the city faced 10, 15, 20 years ago. So a city that is right next to Pittsburgh is the city of Antioch, California. And I've done a video on that already, so I will put a link to it. It'll pop up somewhere here on the screen. If you've got any questions about anything I covered in this video, or you just have general Bay Area real estate questions, please feel free to check out the video description below. My contact information is there, and you can also book a Zoom appointment with me with the links in that video description. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up so YouTube knows to show it to other people with interests similar to yourself. Hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification so you know each and every time I drop a new video, and I'll catch you in the next video.